Hello there, and welcome to day 112 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today I am looking at the Netflix documentary Operation Varsity Blues, the college admissions scandal. It's funny, really. I was talking with my father-in-law to be today about this Super Europe League that's being currently trying to be founded for football. And I didn't really have a great deal of knowledge about it. It's something that had popped up, but I was quite surprised when he immediately said, "Oh, how awful it is, and how it's basically an oligarchy of oligarchs getting together to try and make their own private league where they're able to control it and control the finances of it." And it was interesting because, frankly, I'm not a football guy, and so I suppose I hadn't really paid it much attention. And the fact that it's so... There's something very corporate and capitalist and just greedy about it. And there's something quite dangerous about the excessive greed of it. And so, like I say, even though I'm not a football guy, I became, as soon as it was explained to me, I was very aware of it being another example of this toxic, extreme version of the capitalist idea really sort of coming forward. And it's funny, really, because watching this, it's the other side of that. Now, I was aware of this, weirdly. I was aware of the admission scandal on the periphery. Again, similarly, I didn't know, this is an American admissions issue, but I was aware of it, like many, through the involvement of Lori Loughlin, who of course is the actress who was caught up in the scandal and was charged with fraud and along with all of these wealthy people who created this almost backdoor system for trying to get their kids into college. And there is something quite, as I say, it's the other side of the same issue, where you would think the people involved in this were already so wealthy that on some level, that they wouldn't be concerned to the degree that they are about getting their kids into college, making sure that that's all in place. But what the most interesting thing about this documentary is the fact that though one man was primarily responsible for it, this is a systemic system, and it's an issue of corruption that, well, it's troubling because it's almost unresolvable. So at the centre of the scandal is Rick Singer, and Rick Singer essentially created this private college counsellor, or university, I suppose, here, college counsellor system, where he would be coaching high school kids of wealthy clients into the ways in which they can get into the college of their choice. However, as it unfolds, this is only the tip of the iceberg. In as much as there is a lot of corruption, there is a lot of manipulation and exploitation to try to get the children of these rich kids into these top Ivy League prestigious organisations. And so, as it unfolds, I mean, we're primarily following this guy, Rick Singer, working out exactly who he was, why he was doing this, and how he was doing it. And on some level, even though that's the drive of the film, that's fairly straightforward. He wasn't anything special in his life before. He just simply found an opportunity and climbed the ladder using this opportunity. And then when there came a point where it had reached its potential for him, he found a way to extend it. And of course, that went from legitimate trying to get kids into college to illegally trying to buy or scheme his way into getting these rich, very top rich kids into these Stanfords and UCLs and these top level organizations. And as I say, though the narrative follows him, really what it's discussing and highlighting is the fact that this is if it wasn't him, it could easily have been someone else, and this was simply an exploitation of a system within the US college administration that was really problematic as it was. The idea of the top Ivy League colleges that most kids are trying to get into, and the back-breaking ways that they have to even get considered for admission. One of the interviewees points out that there are enough colleges for everyone to go to, but most people want to go to these top 10% because they want the prestige. But then someone else points out that, of course, prestige is just an illusion. It literally means illusion. That frankly that they go to this level of effort to try and get into these into these institutions that frankly don't mean that much in the grand scheme of things, and the pressure that it puts on kids, particularly someone was saying that if there are now I don't really understand the AP system, but say there are 25 AP classes that a high schooler can attend. If they're only going to one, some of these top 1%, top 10% colleges would immediately just reject them because they're not doing more than enough. They're not doing it. They're not just doing the courses that are in their curriculum. They have to go above and beyond to such a degree that, of course, the wealthiest people have to try and find a way to get that edge. And what Rick Singer was doing was he wasn't just paying off coaches in these colleges or administrators. He was having to create quite a complex system of exploiting the weaknesses within the applications. So it was things like, if you claim to have a disability, you get extra time, and then what he would then do is use that weakness to have someone else come in, to have the student do what they thought was the test, and then to have someone come in and swap them out to then do the test who could easily hit the right targets that would pass. And again, it's this question about things like standardized testing and whether this is appropriate nowadays for kids and whether this is right. And it is a fascinating subject matter. It really is, because again, it's about the fact that though this is a corruption of what is intended, it's almost like the organic next level corruption of something that was already broken, because it only benefits people who have the wealth and the ability to be able to achieve this in the first place. So, you know, so you create these prestigious organizations that are really already only for wealthy families, because simply the kids of those wealthy families are the only ones who would have the access to the resources and the extracurricular interests to be able to be considered by these colleges. So that was another thing that Rick Singer tried to exploit. It's the idea that, you have to show that you are a leader in a particularly unique sport like sailing or fencing or water polo, and so he was taking things like doctoring footage of these kids to make it look like they were participating in these sorts of sports. And again, as I've said again and again, it's about the fact that this is unnecessary, and it creates like this almost like oligarchy of wealth that's about who is the wealthiest and with the greatest resources are the ones who have the abilities to get into these institutions, with a tiny margin for people of different races or socioeconomic classes or or different circumstances, but primarily the focus is bringing these richer people in because that's how they get donations. And of course donations is a primary part of this issue, because it's about the fact that Rick Singer could allow these richer families to pay money to his foundation, and we're talking like $500,000, $1 million, which he would then use to bribe people or to give donations to the right kinds of places that would allow the doors to be opened and reopened for him, and he would know how to get certain people in. And it is a really troubling idea, and the documentary really sort of focuses on that. In terms of the structure of the documentary, like I said, the subject matter is really interesting, really, quite a fascinating topic. And the people discussing it are at the right positions. You have interested parties, you have people in the law or people in the FBI who, of course, were investigating him. People who knew one person is the ex-girlfriend of this guy, but then on top of that, you also have people who are commenting on the legal side of this and the way that this has come about, and sort of the social commentaries on this. And so again, this is that really does open the documentary up conversationally. The problem, and this is the other side of it, is that it's part interview, part footage. There's another part I want to talk about in a second, but then the third aspect is the recreations. And I think I've come to realise one of two things. One, recreations are more common in US documentaries than they are in the UK. Now that might be because I remember growing up with lots of BBC and ITV documentaries, but they were television series using recreations. But in terms of documentary filmmaking, it's not as common here or internationally as it seems to be in a lot of the documentaries I've seen by American filmmakers. Now, my experience may not be quantitative enough yet to make that as a statement, but it's become apparent this is like the third documentary that's used some kind of version of a recreation. And there are interesting ways to do that. I remember years ago seeing the film I Am Malala, and that used an interesting way to represent recreations through hand drawings, and that was quite visually interesting. However, the basic fact is, and this is the other thing, I'm not interested in recreations. I find them a little, especially when they are just simply actors recreating conversations people have had. And I understand that what they're trying to do in this case is the conversations that I had are entirely phone based. And they're phone based because they are the recorded calls that Rixinger made with his clients about the ways he was going to get their kids into their chosen colleges. And yet, I just turn off to it because a recreation is essentially turning it into a docudrama, and unfortunately the drama aspect of it isn't particularly good or interesting. It is just there to tell us how these conversations went about and to try and give us a sense of what was going on. I assume because they don't have access to the recorded material. They did play some of it, but it implies that they didn't have access to it extensively, and so their way around that is that they have the transcripts and they could recreate it. But it's not that interesting to me, and I think that's where the documentary's biggest weakness is. And the other fourth part, so as I say, you've got the interviews, you've got the archive footage, you've got the recreations, and then you've got footage of kids and all these, like social media. And of course, this is the future of documentaries, as I mentioned with Day in a Life 2020. Certain sections of this film are put together by social media footage, and that's really the way you can tell stories, is through using footage you have access to and being able to use it to represent what you are trying to say. Now, this was there purely to strike at the heart of the documentary, which is about the fact that this is all about kids. And, say what you will about the institutional side of it, of the capitalist side of it, of the manipulative system, of the wealth-based economies and all of that. But frankly, it's about these kids whose lives are being pushed around and manipulated by things that they don't really have a great deal of control over. They simply think they want to go to a certain college, they try their best, and they succeed or fail depending on, as I say, things that are almost completely out of their control. And I think that's why that footage is put in there throughout the documentary, is just to remind us of, no matter what else is going on here, that what's at stake is the futures of people who really don't have any say in what they're involved with. And even these rich kids whose parents tried to essentially buy their way into these colleges don't deserve vitriol for it, because they are just kids who do or do not want to go to college. So I broadly like the documentary. Like I said, there's a large section of it that just doesn't work for me, and the commentary is one I'm very interested in this conversation. Now, obviously, it's very US centric and about the sort of the US attitudes to things like money and prestige and power, and that's it's not unique in any way. I'm sure you could have the same kinds of conversations about the educational institutions here or anywhere else, but it's particularly prevalent in America, and obviously the scandal broke out there. But again, I am interested in how something like this can occur and what it says about the society that we're creating. So yeah, I do think this is an interesting documentary to some degree. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out any of my 100 plus videos that I've already put up. I have a documentaries playlist, so if the documentaries are something you are particularly interested in, please check that out for any of the other documentaries I've covered. Also, please hit that little bell icon, because it'll give you notifications when I put new uploads up. If you could also follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley. I'm always tweeting about movie-related things or TV things or news and videos on movies and TV and stuff. And of course, I'm always putting up, I always share the links to new videos on Twitter as well. Thank you for joining me. Take care.